Welcome everyone to today's session. And today we will talk about spreadsheets and more importantly, Excel, because that's one of the most popular spreadsheet tools out. So obviously we start with Excel and then we go into SQL, Python, and Power BI. A lot of the things that we do today in Excel will be the similar things that we will try to do in SQL, Python, and Power BI as well, because our job is to do data analysis. So how do we get the data? How do we clean the data? How do we transform the data? How to analyze data and how to visualize data? That's what we need to learn in Excel. We're not here to just learn Excel. We don't want to learn all the features in Excel. There probably have millions of features in there. What we want to learn in Excel is how do we do our job, which are all these things like getting the data, cleaning, transforming, analyzing, visualizing. How do we do those things with Excel? And obviously, in order to learn that, we need to learn some of the basics, but we probably won't care about all the features in Excel because, that's not relevant to us. But the question begin with could be like, what is a spreadsheet? So a spreadsheet is a file where you have got rows and columns, right? So that's what a spreadsheet is. It's just a file where you have row and column and you have got data in those rows and columns. That's just what a spreadsheet is. And Excel is a tool to edit those spreadsheets. Okay. The spreadsheet is the file, like the Excel file, like .xlx or .csv that you see. And Excel is the program or an editor for that spreadsheet. So you can open those files in Excel and you can manipulate or you can do whatever you want with that spreadsheet. And Excel is not the only one spreadsheet tool. There are other spreadsheet tools like Google Sheets. There is one from Apple as well. It's called Numbers. So you can open your spreadsheet in Numbers and you can do those kind of spreadsheet manipulation as well, right? So just wanted to give you the differences of what a spreadsheet is and what a spreadsheet tool is. Spreadsheet is the files and the spreadsheet tool is the and the Excel is the tool that we use to manipulate that file. And why are spreadsheets so important? So if you have worked in a corporate world, then you already know that everything kind of relies on spreadsheet. If you have worked in accounting and finance, then you probably can tell like more than me. So we need to definitely have good knowledge about how to work with Excel, how to make sure that we are doing it the right way, making sure we understand what different data types in Excel mean, how the cell referencing and all those kind of things work. So that's just to give you an idea of how important an Excel spreadsheet is. It's just the tool that everyone in your company will understand, especially when you go higher up. That's the tool people will base their decisions on, especially financial decisions. So let's jump into Excel. Okay, so I hope all of you have got Excel on your computer. Again, I would assume like this interface is not strange to you. So you probably have used Excel in some capacity, but I will just quickly run through it. So this part here, this is called ribbon. So this is where you can find a lot of functionalities and we will talk the functionalities as well. But what I want you to know is this is what is called the ribbon. And when I tell you to find that tool in the ribbon, this is where you will look at. When I say left side of the ribbon, then obviously you can go on the left side of the ribbon. When I say right side of the ribbon, then you probably will be looking here, right? So this is the ribbon. And these are the tabs. So there is file, home, insert, draw, page layout, all those things. These are the tabs. So when I say go to the data tab, this is what I mean, right? So you will click on the data tab and this ribbon will change. So when you go to different tabs, you will see different options in these ribbons. So when I tell you like, okay, go to the data tab and click on the text to columns from the ribbon, then you will click on the data tab, find that text to column on the ribbon and you will click there. So that's just normal navigation in here. And as we go, I will show you other things as well. So this is just the navigation. And then in here, you can see this is sheet 1. Which means this page. Okay. So your Excel spreadsheet can have multiple pages. So you can add a sheet here. Like, okay, that will be sheet 2. If I click on this, there you go. So if you click on this plus, it will give you another sheet. So you are creating a new page for that. Maybe you're doing some calculation here, but you want a fresh page so that you can do something else. Then you can always start a new sheet, then you can add a lot of pages, and they are called sheets. And you can rename your sheets as well. So if I want to call it like first, then that will be my first sheet. And then if I want to call it second, that will be my second sheet, and so on. So that's on again in Excel. And once you're done with whatever you want to do, you need to make it into practice to save your file quite often, because things can crash, or you accidentally close it out, or you accidentally close your computer, and you might lose your work. And you definitely wouldn't want to lose your work, because maybe you have spent hours and hours on this Excel spreadsheet. So one of the things that I would like to remind you guys is to save quite often. So this save button is just here, or you can just press Control S. So I'll just save it. And usually when you save on OneDrive, it will automatically save it for you as well. But when you're working offline, then you have to manually save it. So I'll just put it into documents. And because my documents is, probably need to rename it Excel Plus. All right. So I just save this spreadsheet as Excel class. So let's talk about the interfaces here. So we talked about these tabs and ribbons, but let's talk about this. So this is called the formula bar. So this is where we will put in our formulas or whatever we want to put, like sum or all those different formulas that we'll talk about later. But this is the formula bar, and this is where we will write our formulas. So just remember the name. This is the formula. Now let's talk about the spreadsheet itself. So this, like where you can see this A, B, C, D, these are the columns. Right? So if I'm interested in column C, that's what this means. This is the column C. And these are the rows. So row number 1, 2, 3, and so on. And when you combine the row with a column, that's where you got a cell. So a cell has got a reference of both column and the row. So if you need to address any particular cell, you need to know its column and the row. Okay. For instance, let's say, can anyone tell me what is the reference for this cell? So what's the row and column? Yeah. So when we talk about the address, it will always be column first and the row. So we'll call it head6, right? And if it was here, then this will be F3. Because when I want to show you the shortcuts, I want you to see it on the screen as well, so that you know what I'm typing, so that you can follow along as well. Right, so that's cell referencing, which is quite easy. Like you need to know its column, and then you need to know its row, and then you can figure out which cell we exactly are talking about. Now let's start to use some of those features that we will need in our data analytics and data processing journey. Right? So let's do a serial number. So let's try to create one. So we're trying to build a table here. So serial number, and then I will go 1, 2, 3. But maybe I have 50 things in there. So would I be just typing in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all the way to the 50? Absolutely not, right? Because I have got this Excel, and it's got really nice features that I'm going to show you on how you can just expand it. So for example, if I want to select 1, 2, and 3, how would I do that? What I can do is I can press Control, and then I can start clicking on the rows. So now I have selected 3 of them. So you can do Control. Or what you can do is, let's say there was 4 and 5. So I can select 1, and then maybe I want to select everything until number 4. Okay. Then what I can do is I can hold Shift. And if I go on the number 4, it will select everything in between 1 and 4. So that's the difference between Control and Shift. If I click here, and if I hold Control and select 4, it will only select 1 and 4, because 1 was already selected and I just clicked on 4. That's Control. It selects that whatever you have clicked on. But what Shift does is when you click on the starting point, hold the Shift and click on the stopping point, it selects everything in between. That's how the selection works in here. Control, if you want to just click on all the selections. Shift, if you want to select everything in between. But there are other ways we can make it easier, which is by using arrow keys. So what I can do is I can use Shift and I can use down arrow to keep selecting things and as I go down. But if I had something on here, like A, B, C, so what I can do is I can go to the starting point, hold shift and use right arrow if I want to select on the right. And now if I want to bring that selection down, I will use the down arrow to select all those 8 cells. Okay. So choose a starting point, hold shift, and you can use right arrow to go to the other side. It's any arrow that you want. So if I'm here and I want to go the other way, I can go this way and then I can go down. I can go up as well if I was supposed to go up. Right? So that's the selection. Or if you're holding the shift key, you can use any arrow direction to increase your selection. Go all the way here as well. But sometimes even pressing this down key can take some time because currently we just have 5, let's just say 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. So even if I'm using this shift and down, it takes a while, like I need to press it too many times. But there is a shortcut to select everything on that line. And it's the control shift. Because what control does is if you're on the starting position of this column, if you press control and then you press down key, it takes you to the end of that column. And the end is always the last non-null value. Okay. So even if there was something here, it will always take you to the last non-null value. Null, there is something. It won't know that. Excel doesn't care about that. But it will always take you to the last value on that column. If you do control and down. So now we will combine that with shift. And this is what it will do. So if you do control shift down, it will select everything from there. Because control down was supposed to take you to the last element. And then because you started from the first element and you were also holding shift, so now it selects all of that thing in there. And it's not limited to a column going down. You can use the same and go to the other side as well to select all the columns. So control shift, this arrow selects all the column. Control shift down will take me in and select all the things until there is a null. So let's talk about autofills now, because that's probably why people use Excel. It autofills a lot of things. So for example, if I had this series and I want to expand it to not 10, but 200, then I can just do that and it will populate all that for me, right? Because that's how the autofill works, is it will look at the pattern of your selection and it will repeat that pattern over and over again until whenever you want. Right? You can hover over to the bottom right of the selection and drag it. Or if you want to do something like, because this is already populated and you want this to be populated until the end of this, then you can simply just do a double click and it will populate it until the end of the other series. And it doesn't always do the right job that you want it to do. For example, we were trying to do A, B, C, D, and I was hoping that it will get E, F, G, H, and so on. But what it did was it just thought that the pattern was A, B, C, D. So it just repeated that A, B, C, D pattern over and over again, right? So it doesn't always get the pattern, but that's where we come with those formulas and stuff to make sure that our autofill always works, right? So that's on that. So let's call it item. And let's call it now price. So there is serial number, item, and price. So A maybe costs like 4.5, maybe costs 3.6, 9.5, now whatever. So let's say this is an item called the ABCD, and this is the price. But let's talk about the data types now, because that again is another most important thing. And especially when you get into data analytics, data types become really important. So this price, even if they seem like number, what data type they actually should be is they need to be a data type of a dollar value or currency, right? And that's where this comes in, where you can define the data type of these values, right? So if I want to change the data type of the entire column, or I can only do the selected rows, and I can change the data type of those selected rows. Okay. For now, it's probably better to change the data type of the entire column, because no matter how many prices we're going to put in there, it will always be a currency or a dollar value. Right? So I can change its data type to currency, and now I can see those dollar values in it. And after that, let's just put like a purchase date here. And purchase date, we can put in some dates like 2024, 7, 1. Okay. So for the purchase date, we're putting the dates. But if we check the data type, yeah, it actually converted it into date, which is fine. It did that already, but let's assume that it didn't put it into date. Right. So let's try to force it to be text first. And then we will 2024, check 2024, there's a 1. Okay, so we have got these dates, but it's not actually being treated as date. It is being treated as text. So what we can do, again, we can select the column and we can change its data type to long date or short date, depending on which format we prefer, right? Let's put it at short date. And now it is being treated as a date. And then we can change the date formattings and stuff as well if we go to more numbers format. And then in here, in the date format, we can change which format we want this to show up as. We can change this format to this, where if we want the day of the week to come up there, we want to change it to MMDDYY to DDMMYY or whatever we prefer. We can change that, right? So 7, 1. So that's the date. And if I select this and if I want to change the formatting to say, okay, I don't want it in this format, I want the name of the month to be spelled out, then I can change that. And now it is changed to the day, and the day of the month will be spelled out. Or I can do it any way I want. There are lots of different formats available. And if I can't find the format that I'm looking for, I can even build my custom format, and I can use these kind of patterns to say, okay, I want it in this specific format. And this kind of format comes in really handy when we are dealing with larger numbers, where we want to maybe represent it in millions or represent 1,000 instead of having really long number. In those kind of scenarios, we can build our own custom pattern to represent it as K or M or B if there is like millions or billions number. So they're just letting you know that this kind of custom formattings are available. You can format different data types in different ways you want. And that's how it will work. Okay, so another thing about selection is if you want to select the entire column, you will just select on the name of that column. That will select the entire column. So if you want to delete the entire column or something, always click on the column name. And same applies for row as well. If you want to delete a specific row, you just select on that row number and you can delete that row. So let's do total price. And that's where our formulas will start to come in. The total price will be the unit price multiplied by the quantity. And that's how we write formulas, is we start with an equal, and then we now start to write what things needs to happen, right? And the thing that needs to happen here is we need to take the price from this cell and multiply that with this cell. And that gives us the total price, which is 1350. And for this cell as well, we need to do the same thing, right? So I need to do this multiply by this. And I can keep going like that, or I can use the autofill of Excel. Right? And what I can do is I can verify whether it is doing the right thing or not by looking at the formula, right? So on this cell, it is doing the multiplication between C2 and E2. And on this cell, it is doing the multiplication between C3 and E3. And that's what I expect, right? Because it will always need to multiply the price by the quantity of the exact same item, right? And if we continue going down, that's what is exactly happening. And that's what I'm expecting. Right? So that's how we will use formulas to reference the value from different cells. And we can do some operations on it like multiplication, addition, or whatever it is. Okay, so let's talk about discount now. So maybe we have got a discount percentage here. So we currently have a 20% discount on our store. So on all those total price, we want to give 20% discount. And because this number was supposed to be percentage, but it's a decimal, so I can, again, format it to be a percentage. Right? So now its data type is percentage. Right? So we have got a 20% discount, and now we need to apply this 20% discount to the total price. Right? So how much the discount price will be is I need to do equals. And then on the total price, you multiply that with the discount, and that's how you get the discount price. Because if you got that much on your total bill, then you get 20% discount. That's how much discount you will get. And now I will try to again use the autofill to calculate the discount for the other ones as well. But something weird happens here that the discount for the other prices don't come in. And because it's not correctly referenced, and that's where we come into absolute referencing versus relative reference. Okay. So if we look at the formula on what is happening, and again, like when a value is a calculated value, you can always press F2 to see the formula behind it. So for this particular cell, I can see that, the total price is being multiplied by the discount, which is 20%. That's good. And when I look at this cell, what is happening is the total price is being multiplied by not the discount, but the cell below that. And that's how Excel works, right? Because by default, when it says that, okay, if the other cell value goes down, on formula as well, it will try to make the similar adjustment. And for this one, for the first total price, it made sense, right? Because if we were talking about this price, and we should be talking about this quantity as well. So it made sense there. But here it doesn't make sense because for all the items, it's the same discount percentage. So that discount percentage has to be fixed. And that's where we talk about absolute referencing or locking those columns and rows. Okay. So what is happening here is if you see in the formula, the row number is changing, right? From the first calculation where it was C2 multiplied by E2. And then in the second one, it was C3 multiplied by E3, which means the row is changing. But in here, what we want is we want the row number to change. But for the second value, we don't want that row number to change because our discount percentage only exists at 01. It doesn't exist at 02, right? So we don't want that 1 to change to 2. And there's a way to tell Excel that I don't want this number to change. And that's by inserting $1 in front of that. So if I don't want this number 1 to change to number 2, I will put $1 against that, which tells Excel that this 1 is always going to be fixed. It cannot change. But the F2, that number 2 doesn't have $1 in front of it, which means that number 2 can change to number 3 when we do the autofill. Because every time you see, it's always referring to the 01. While the front one, which is F, it's changing, right? So on the first formula, it was F2 times 01. And the second formula, it was F3 times 01, F4 times 01, and so on. But so if you don't want the value to change, and it can be both column and row. In this particular thing, we said we don't want the row number to change, but we can say that, okay, I don't even want the column to change as well. So I can put $1 against the column name as well. And it will also give us the same result because the column name wasn't changing anyway, right? So that's how we will use those dollar to change our relative referencing to absolute referencing. And depending on whether you want the column to change or row to change or not to change, that's where you will insert your dollars in, right? If I want to make it even more robust, I can introduce $1 on F as well. because I don't want the column F to change as well. I only want the row numbers to change. So that way we'll make it even more robust, saying that, okay, the value, it will always pick from the F column, and then the discount, it will always pick from that particular location. And yeah, if we do that, we still get the exact same result. Okay, does that make sense? Because this is really important to get a good grasp of this absolute versus relative referencing, because it can screw up a lot of calculations and your calculation can be a mess. So it's really important to get this correct. All right, so that's on absolute referencing, but we can make our life a little bit easier here. So yes, we can use dollars, which is preferred way of doing it, but we can make it slightly more user-friendly as well. So what we can do in Excel is if we have got a value, we can give that cell a name, right? For example, this cell is O1, right? So that's why you can see O1 here, but I can call it the discount percentage. Okay. So what I did is I changed the name of this cell reference from O1 to discount percentage. Now I can actually refer to this value as discount percentage. I don't need to worry about O1 or whatever. So what I can do is let's get rid of this thing. Now I can do equals this thing multiplied by discount percentage. So you can see that variable in the Excel itself, and I will use that discount percentage, and that will give me the exact same thing. And now I don't need to worry about absolute referencing because that variable is already just defined by 20%, so it will not try to change it. So I can just use my autofill really easily, and that makes my life easier. And when someone looks at my Excel and trying to figure out what calculation is happening, they can easily tell, okay, this is what it is happening. They're just doing the total price multiplied by discount percentage. So that will make it a bit more cleaner as well. Okay, so what you can do is you can change the name of the cell, like the cell reference to whatever you want, and that will become your variable now. So you can use that variable in whatever calculation you need. So that again makes it even easier. Right. Okay, so we have got the discount price. So now we will say the final price, which will be this minus this. And that's, again, a really easy thing to do. So now let's say we have got tax or GST, say, and GST is maybe 10%. So we will do a total here. So our total will be a sum of all these things. So I would use a formula, this sum and open bracket. And then now I can select everything that I want to sum in this sum function, right? So just select all of this. You can use the click and drag, or you can use your Control Shift arrow, whatever you prefer. And that will give us the sum. And on that sum, we want to add that 10% GST. So again, the same thing like this, multiply by this. That will give you the GST. And let's just do grand total will be this plus this. So that's probably like the most basic things in Excel. And I just wanted to cover it just to give everyone a chance, like if they haven't got some exposure to Excel yet. So they're with all these things, because everything that we do later on relies on this, right? So you need to know how referencing will work. You need to know how formulas work and all those kind of things. Is what I usually do is I'll just select the table that I want. Like this is the table that I want. And I usually format it as table. And I can use like whatever format that I think goes nice. So I'll just click on one of the format. I will say my table has header, and it will give me this nice little format. And example, if I were to do something here saying that, okay, final price plus final price times 10% or whatever, if I were to do a calculation here, it will automatically do rest of the calculation for me already. So I don't even need to worry about autofills and things like that. When I can, I usually try to put things into table, and it also gives me this kind of functionality like, okay, you want to look at the 3rd of the July or whatever. If I want to put a filter or anything, can do that. I can sort things out and all those kind of things. So just some housekeeping things. And the other thing I tend to do a lot, and I will definitely show you how we use that to find discrepancies in the data and things like that, is the conditional formatting. Yes, and I really like this. I really like conditional formatting. Is you can select on whatever cells you want to apply the conditional formatting on, and then you can say, okay, I want to put a conditional formatting. And there are lots of rules that you can choose. Okay, I want it to be in green color if it is greater than this. I want to be in red color if it is lower than that, or whatever you want to be. You can build those rules in here, and it makes it really easy for whoever is looking at your Excel to understand, okay, this is what I need to pay attention to, those kind of things. Right. So for example, if I want to identify what's the most expensive item from this list, then I'll do this. All right. So what I just did is I put a conditional formatting saying, select the top one and change the color to red. Right. So it is saying that the top one on this list will be marked as red. Okay. So what will happen now is if anything changes, for example, if this changes to 20, then hopefully that will be the most expensive item. That will be red. So I can easily identify what was the most expensive item from this list. Really simple, but you can use this kind of conditional formatting to quickly identify the thing of interest. So maybe what I'm interested in is, okay, if the value goes above 100, that's probably when I will be interested in that. When the value goes below or when the value is negative and I don't want it to be negative, then I can use conditional formatting to flag those and say, okay, this value is negative, right? So this kind of thing really helps in creating or identifying those discrepancies in the data. So conditional formatting definitely is one of the tools that I really like as well. So let's check in on our list. Well, okay, what were the things we were covering? So we covered the navigation part. We know how to navigate. We talked about cell referencing, relative, absolute, and mixed. We talked about formatting cells. Yes, we talked about normal, conditional formatting, date formatting, font formatting. Talked about that. Data types in Excel, numbers. Yeah, we already talked about that in data types. And we will talk about data management. So let's go into data management.